And I'm just gonna set this thing up on the table.
People are ball and speak and we bad than we need. But the them see the lamity. So we shoot out pain, pick up another jeep. Make them have a experience, no gravity. Tell a pussy, fuck to the dead guy. All your people are dead guy. You should have keep in your bed guys. The Taliban's them a make one. Fuck to the dead guy. But this is how we end up. So no shoot people feel up in a red car. friends always feel the need to tell me things. Seems like they're just happier than us these days. Yeah. These days, I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to be who you need me. It feels like the only time you'll see me is when you turn your head to the side and look at me differently. Yeah. And last night, I think I lost my patience. Last night, I got high expectations. Last night, I came to a realization, and I hope you can take it. I hope you can take it all. I'm too good to you. I'm way too good to you. You take my love for granted. I just don't understand it. No, I'm too good to you. I'm way too good to you. You take my love for granted. I just don't understand it. Last night, I got high expectations. Last night, I came to a realization, and I hope you can take it. I hope you can take it all. I'm too good to you. I'm way too good to you. You take my love for granted. I just don't understand it. No, I'm too good to you. I'm way too good to you. You take my love for granted. I just don't understand it.
Check. Yes. Okay.
All right, we're gonna get up. Whoa, that was loud. Sorry about that. We're gonna get started here in about 10 minutes. So just letting you guys all know, if you're eating or you haven't ate, go get some food, smoke. 10 minutes, we're gonna get started. Check. Check, check.
Does this stage have a weight limit? Because we might tilt. Away from my mouth? So like out here? Okay. Sound okay? Yeah.
Just hold it like this.
I was about to spit a hot 16, dude.
Check.
See? I told you. Just let me speak. It's fine.
Check.
If it does that, just
You did? Check.
you have to talk into it.
Check. So it has to be tilted like this. So it's the actual microphone. Yeah, I have to like hold it like this. That's weird. I thought it was me at first. I was like, what am I doing? I don't know, but yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
I didn't know we have the same barber.
We do have the same barber, yeah. I've been going to him for quite a while.
check.
He's cool. I like him. Yeah, I like him. a lot.
Check. Should be good.
What do you think it was?
All right. Hit us
Okay.
with your best rap, though.
Yeah, no. Hot 16 bars.
Gas pedal. Stop. Rip.
Jesus Christ.
I feel like these events are difficult to get people to come out sometimes.
They are. Kevin does a good job with his. You know,
Connect stuff.
at Indoor Sun, yeah.
Oh, what do they do there?
Yeah, they just like the same thing, really. Maybe a couple food trucks, and they have like a panel. But most of the time, people just go there to just smoke and like meet up after work.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's like right in the heart of the green zone. This is like across the highway, like a mile away.
We went over there earlier.
Check.
There's like 10 grows.
Yes, and they all shop at Indoor Sun.
Check.
All right, buddy. See ya.
Okay.
Sick. Yeah, you look for like a
Cooler in this?
like State Farm agent or something.
Okay.
Check.
I'm about to put you on the set.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool thing,
Sure.
whatever. Just,
Can I just hold it like that?
yeah, if it does, just mute it. Okay. Careful, I'll get your breathing recorded.
Uh-oh. Check.
Should we get some questions just in case I forget what we wrote?
Silence the phone too.
Yeah, right.
Hey, can you hear me outside or no? We're gonna shoot it. 5 minutes of news. Check. Ooh, okay. I'm just working on distance. Louder than this? Oh, can you hear me now? Oh, Verizon, can you hear me now? Sound like a Verizon commercial. Can the people outside hear me or no? Is it connected to the speakers outside? No. Okay. All right, well, somebody might want to go tell me we're going to start here shortly. Thank you. What do you think of the stage? You see this got built?
Yeah, it's good. I was saying, hopefully it doesn't have a weight limit.
That's why I'm staying off of it.
Yeah. It's like put it like way out here. It's hear my breathing.
another couple of tables here with other fans and stuff that's kind of shoved up there.
Well, just like the attention to detail, like how cool this place looks. It's rad.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, would you know? No worries, no worries, they don't want to come in until getting set, they didn't walk a little bit.
There's just a couple people waiting for the food.
You got it. What time is that?
6:35.
Okay, alright, very excited. Alright guys, thank you for coming to the Magtech store and visiting us. We're going to have a Grodan seminar. We got Acronym next to me over here, and we're going to be discussing Grodan products, different stone wool products that they have, and how to stack them properly, stack them, good combinations. Also going to be discussing the grow sense equipment, moisture sensing equipment, and also irrigation strategies with strategies on second team. We have Josh, my neighbor, and John
Jericho.
Jericho. I want to put you up.
You good?
From Grodan, and I'm going to turn you over to Akron.
Awesome, like you said, thank you guys all for coming. Basically have a knowledge-based session on some of the perks of precision irrigation. I'll do a quick little demo on the eGrow platform just to show you kind of what it looks like so it makes sense when he's going over some of the data modules or data collecting that we're doing. We kind of understand where he's drawing that info from. So we have an extensive team. John is our technical rep, always willing to help you out with anything that's going on with your stone wool or environment, and always pushing the yields and things like that. Tyler, he's the local rep up here. He takes care of Northern California, so most likely, if you're here at the seminar, he's going to be the one taking care of you, sending you samples of products if you're interested in trying it, setting you up with eGrow demos, and holding your hand to hopefully avoid any of those pitfalls that come by being unfamiliar with the product at first. And then we also have Michael Bateman, who's here somewhere. He's our general manager. So the team is pretty deep. Also, we got Shelby, who's down in the corner over there, takes care of our retail aspect. So we're a very diverse team, very specialized in the things we do. So we're always here to serve you and help you guys out. So without any further delay, I guess I'll show you quickly what the eGrow platform consists of. So here it is up on the screen. It basically has 3 modules. This is the first module, is what we call the landing page. The landing page basically gives you a quick understanding of what your parameters are at the time. So if you look right here at room 3, LED grow, you'll notice you have the water content, EC, and root zone temperatures. That's everything to do with your substrate. And down below, that has everything to do with your environment. So you have your room temperature, your humidity, and your CO2. That's giving you a snapshot of what's going on real quick. So you'll see those little light bulbs everywhere where it's illuminated. That's telling you that room has lights on. If it was dimmed out, it would be lights off. You could also get a min-max reading. So if you click on the square, you'll get on the sides, it'll tell you what the min-maxes were for each one of those. So your min-max water content for the day, your min-max EC, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of your landing page. If anything was out of spec or out of parameters that you weren't looking for, it would be highlighted in red so that you quickly know that, hey, something's So that's just a quick overview. Just wanted to give you a quick understanding of what the ecosystem data collects and how we use that to make some of the decisions that we do, and then John's going to take a deeper dive into that. So that's it. I'll hand it off to you guys. So you guys have a series of questions, I guess. You guys are going to go over, and then from with each question, if you guys have a question on that topic, we'll open it up for a little discussion, and then we'll move on to the next topic. What was that? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Your eyes then. Okay. Or did you want to read out the questions, or did you want to?
I can read them out. So, John, you actually have a lot more experience with these sensors and this platform than I do. Although I do understand a lot of the terminology, maybe you can just go over, based off these questions, some of the information that you know. So
Sure.
the first question is, how does Grodan's crop steering methodology optimize water and nutrient delivery to enhance yield and quality?
Yeah, so when we're getting into crop steering and we're looking at different parameters for what we are going to set in the root zone and the environment, you'll hear a lot about precision irrigation, but we also want to make sure that we're also including good inputs from the environment as well. It's very important to keep everything in balance. But as we're beginning to use some of our methodologies, whether it's generative steering or vegetative steering, we can target certain plant messaging through different cycles in the crop, or different phases in the crop cycle to get different results in the plant. So as we do these precise irrigation events and this targeted environmental steering as well, we can get different results in the plant throughout the different phases. So by looking at that data and really optimizing that, we can begin to increase our yield and then also improve our quality as well. And when we go to look at our finished product, we can say, hey, did we check all of these boxes for what we're looking for in terms of quality or in terms of yield? And if we have not met those boxes or checked those boxes off, then we can go back to the drawing board and start to adjust things. But using this methodology, we see it in crops that are not just cannabis focused, in vegetable crops as well. Crop steering really started in that realm and was brought over to the cannabis world. So you see a lot of that, especially very advanced high-tech greenhouses running, stone wool, and really being able to apply math to it is a huge thing. So we're able to apply math and science at the same time and then optimize some of these results, whether it's quality or yield.
Sweet. So what specific data metrics does Grodan recommend monitoring to evaluate the effectiveness of the crop steering strategies?
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys have heard of crop registration before, or really looking at what's going on with different metrics throughout the cycle, whether it's in the veg cycle or the flower cycle. There are certain things that we're going to be looking at in addition to our root zone conditions as well as our environmental conditions, but looking at, from my iPhone and veg, what is my stem diameter? What is my root colonization in the block? What is my height of the plant? Am I topping or not topping? And what we want to evaluate at that point is, did our irrigation decisions or our environmental decisions get the results that we wanted? Did we get the structure of the plant built very quickly? Did we get the root zone established to a good point where we can go ahead and stack it on another block or put it on a slab, move it into flower? Same thing once we get into flower, we want to look at some of those same crop registration points. We may have slightly different metrics as we get into flower, but we're looking at same thing there: root development, stem diameter. We want to look at plant height, bud development. How well do we stack the bud sites? Are we getting internodal spacing or not? What does that look like for the cultivar? And how can we approach each cultivar a little bit differently to get the results that we want based on these strategies that we have?
Yeah, I think it's really important too, because a lot of those characteristics, it happens so quick. So you just have to be on it, and I think monitoring the plant is first and foremost the most important thing, especially for like internodal spacing. It could happen overnight if you're not careful. So I think it's really important to just make sure you're focused on the plant as well during that time. So can Grodan's crop steering techniques and methodologies be tailored to different crop types or growing environments, such as high-tech greenhouses versus vertical farms? And that's something like personally, like I don't really see too often Grodan or Rockwool in general in greenhouses, but Is that something? Is that a
It's
thing?
pretty common for vegetable production, so
Okay.
you'll see it in places like Leamington, by the Great Lakes, also in the Netherlands. You know, the Dutch are, you know, obviously this is where most of this started. So we'll see it in crops including tomatoes, cucumbers, sweet peppers, leafy greens, things like that. So there is, you know, this crop steering that's going on in those different different crop environments. And when it comes to vertical farming, you know, there's a lot of challenges that can happen there. So, you know, we can look at different configurations to make it fit a certain cultivation methodology for a specific facility, which, you know, in your case, you guys are dealing with obviously a tiered environment, so that can be challenging, and you've got to tailor certain decisions based on that environment and what you're doing there.
So how have growers quantified improvements in productivity or resource efficiency after implementing Grodan's crop steering recommendations?
Yeah, so some of the biggest savings we see is generally in water efficiency and fertilizer efficiency compared to other medias. It generally takes more water and fertilizer to essentially refresh the media, so we have to have a little bit more runoff. If you're in a media like cocoa or something, or peat media, it's going to require more runoff to displace the old pore water. And with stone wool, because it's an inert media, we're able to refresh it very quickly. So that gives us a good advantage of being able to manage our resources more efficiently and essentially use less water and less fertilizer.
I agree. I mean, everything happens quicker in Rockwool, right? That and also the stacking, like everything is very fast.
And yeah, you've been in both facilities before. You've ran cocoa before, so I'm sure
Yeah,
in addition to what we're seeing with resource efficiency, there is something to be said about the labor efficiency as well. I'm sure you can speak to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the efficiency when it comes to labor on everything from the steering techniques and the nutrients to actually taking care of the facility, right? It's just a cleaner product overall. So I think there's so many benefits to it in general.
Yeah, I think, you know, certain places where you're transplanting clones, for example, in a cocoa medium, you usually have to prep the media a little bit more, which takes a little bit more time. You've got to fluff it. Once you get the clone transplanted, you've got to seed it into the media. You've got to usually either hand water it in, do some extra steps. You know, in addition to that, when you go to harvest your room, our harvests are a lot quicker because we can, you know, cut the plant down, have the media and the root ball to get rid of, but there's a lot less cleanup, a lot less cocoa, a lot less debris on the tables. So that gives us an advantage in terms of labor efficiency as well.
Yeah, we'll get into it with substrate configurations as well, but I know as far as like stacking on top of each other, there's just a lot more insight that you need to have, and a lot of the times, unfortunately, it comes after doing it and not knowing how to root them in correctly, and you walk in your room, you're like, what am I doing wrong? But yeah, we'll touch on that in a bit. So what role does Grodan's GrowSense system play in achieving consistent results through precision crop steering?
Yeah, so obviously using the eGrow system gives us a chance to make data-driven decisions. It also gives us a chance to look at historical data, so we can come back to the drawing board and adjust our recipes for what we're doing regarding our irrigation and our environment. So having that real-time data is extremely valuable, and it really helps you know, push an organization forward. You know, without that data, you're kind of, you know, making decisions based off of
Going in blind.
Exactly, and we don't want to do that. You
Yeah.
know, so the more time that we have looking at data, then that also, you know, if we're not hand watering or doing things like that, it gives us more time to actually be with the plants and observe what's going on.
Right, right. So we can go into the eGrow platform a little more in this next section and talk about the eGrow platform. What key data points does eGrow analyze to help growers make more precise irrigation decisions?
Yeah, so for eGrow, we're looking at environmental conditions as well. So, you know, anytime that we're making inputs to our root zone, we want to make sure that we've got good environmental inputs as well. So that always goes hand in hand. So we're looking at temperature, humidity, and CO2 with the eGrow system. In addition to that, we may ask our customers to look at light intensity and airflow, some things that, you know, honestly, got Andrews here from Pitt, a great guy to talk to about airflow, but I think it's one of the biggest things that really gets overlooked in facilities or can be really challenging, especially in a tiered facility. So when we're looking at all of those conditions, in addition, we're also looking at what's going on in the root zone. So we're monitoring our our EC, our water content, and our temperature of the block or the slab. And then we're also looking at some other parameters for what our customers are doing. We're looking at our input EC, our input pH, and then we're also evaluating what's going on in our runoff in regards to our EC and our pH. And that helps us make more informed decisions to paint the whole picture so that we can keep essentially everything balanced between the environment and the root zone.
Yeah, I think having something to go back and look at as far as data points goes is extremely important. You know, as somebody who runs a facility, or you have so many different departments, you have employees that have problems that come out of nowhere, or you got pulled into sales and you didn't get to check something, or you know, whatever the case may be, it's always great to be able to go back, check those data points for the day, make sure everything's running consistently. So having a platform in general, I think, is key to running commercial operations.
Agreed, absolutely.
So how does eGrow integrate real-time substrate and climate data to optimize irrigation timing and volume?
So just like Josh said, you know, if you get pulled away from something that's going on, you've got administrative duties going on, and you don't have enough time to look at your graphs, and you come to find an issue with something going on in the room, maybe it's an environmental issue or something with your root zone, it allows you to make real-time actions immediately so that you can course correct before the end of the day and make sure that you essentially don't run into more mistakes that could become costly.
Right, and that's also important because, you know, when you're not around your system, right, an alert type of system is something that's so important. You get a ping on your phone or something, you get a chance to use the restroom and it's like, oh man, check this out, I got an alert right now for something. So that goes into the next question, which is, you know, how can eGrow provide predictive insights or alerts to prevent over or under irrigation events? And the predictive part of it is something new, right?
So there is a feature in there with a water content projection tool. So that gives us predictive insight on previous irrigation events from the previous day, so we can predict when we stop irrigating where we're going to end up the next day before we start irrigating again. So that is a newer feature. In addition, we've got alerts and alarms that you can set in eGrow, which I think are, you know, extremely important and provide some insurance for your facility. You know, if you are not getting notifications, I mean, I know it can get a little bit annoying at times, but when you look at the big picture, it can really save a crop. You know, I've been there, it was a few years ago, had some sensors that started going off about 2 o'clock in the morning. I knew that my pump had run dry, and I had logged in, checked everything on my cameras. I could see that I was filling my tank, but the pump had ran dry, so it wasn't sending irrigations to the room. So 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to the facility, you know, I've got a couple hours before the lights are about to go off for the day, and was able to essentially save the crop because I had this root zone monitoring system that, in addition to everything else that it does in terms of data and allowing us to really steer these plants, it can also work as insurance to help me make sure that I save a crop, because, you know, some of these rooms are just $500,000 rooms, and if you lose a crop, it can really cripple a business, and we just can't afford to do that at this point in the game right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody who's been in cannabis long enough has had one of those moments, those oh shit moments, where an AC goes down or something goes down and your lights are on in the middle of the night and you wake up and you get an alert. It's like, holy shit, you run down to the facility, and if you never would have gotten that alert, you could have, which has happened to me before, unfortunately, walked into a room that's completely fried. You know, and whatever insurance says they're gonna cover, they're full of shit. You know, you're not really gonna get covered with anything. So this is your insurance at the end of the day. It's something that you can count on, really.
And if you're, you know, the director of cultivation, guess who's held accountable for that?
Yeah, exactly.
And,
at the end of the day, there's no one else to
it's
blame.
your job, and you want to keep doing it, so you gotta pay attention to those alerts. And
It's a privilege to work in this industry, so, you know, to let things like that slip or get past you, it really is on the cultivator at the end of the day. You have to live and die by this. You really do.
agreed.
So how does eGrow's visualization of root zone dynamics improve decision making compared to traditional irrigation methods?
So to touch back onto something like hand watering, you know, or I like to think of it as gatekeeping of information. You know, if you have somebody in an organization that has a lot of knowledge and that knowledge is not passed down to the other employees, then that can become a problem. So when we're looking at this historical data, you know, if say my cultivation manager decides to leave and go do something else, now I have all this data that I can go back and look at, which is going to help me stay successful and not miss a beat. However, you know, if you are gatekeeping information and then your head grower ends up leaving facility, no longer with the organization, you lose a lot of that knowledge as well. So that can become a challenge. So I think that's really where one of the benefits is from that.
Definitely, definitely. So like, what kind of feedback have growers provided about the impact of eGrow on water savings or fertilizer savings, the use efficiency, crop performance? I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we see pretty heavy yields in terms of stone wool. I think quality is subjective. We want to make sure that we are reducing our inputs to maximize what we're doing in terms of our output. So really being efficient with our resources. So back to fertilizer and water, generally compared to a media like cocoa, it generally takes about 10% or more water to fertilizer to displace the old pore water in the media. So, that's a lot of the feedback that we've gotten in addition to, labor savings and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think, like you said, quality is subjective, but there's all this talk in the industry about Rockwool versus cocoa or soil or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of data. You look at someone recently, like the Proper Doinks guys, right? I think the winner of that out of Michigan was in Rockwool using Athena at the end of the day, and they won the competition. So I don't think it's really. I mean, the medium is important, but I think it's about the driver of the vehicle and the person steering that plant. So. I think all this is extremely important to just achieving yields and quality and everything we need to survive in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I see some of the powerhouse guys here too. Everybody talking about the synganic thing. That is real. Microbes are huge. You really want to set yourself apart and look at quality. I mean, that's one way to do it. We know that it helps with secondary metabolite production. In addition to that, we also see some anecdotal evidence that it does help with the shelf life. We also know fresh flower is generally, for most strains, better to smoke than something that's been cured for a year or so. It has less oxidative stress on the plant or on the buds. So, when we're looking at quality, we want to make sure we can maintain that as long as possible so that we're not reducing, our value of our product. So.
Yeah, I agree. And Kevin was one of the first people that I spoke with about, doing some type of synganics in Rockwool, because I had heard so many things about Rockwool not being something that can handle the synganics and not being ideal for it. But at the end of the day, it definitely can improve the overall quality of the plant, the smokability of it, which are major factors. We're all trying to stand out some way. So it is something new. It's something that everybody has to try and learn, but people are doing it and they're doing it at scale. So I think it's best if everybody, takes it at their own pace, but it will improve the overall quality of your flower. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So after going over all that, I think substrate configurations is something that's extremely important. I know I've done personally at the Miami Mango facility a lot of substrate configurations, just trying to figure out what works best. Single tier applications, double tier applications. What are the key differences between Grodan slabs and blocks? And how do these differences impact crop performance?
Yeah, so generally with blocks, for the most part, small blocks are going to be generated for more vegetative growth. We're able to build the structure of the plant very quickly and really save on some of that veg time. If you're going into a larger substrate like a 1 gallon cocoa pot, you'll generally see a little bit longer veg time to get the same structure in that plant. So that's usually what we see from the small blocks. And then when it comes to slabs, they give you the highest water content steering range. So it really gives you the ability to really dry back further than you would in a smaller block or Hugo. And that has a lot to do with gravity and kind of what we're fighting and capillary action. So when we're kind of fighting gravity and the taller we get on a block, the harder it is to re-wet and to maintain that water content over time. So generally the slabs are going to re-wet a little bit easier, so you can have a little bit more extreme dry back. I don't want to say extreme because I'm not the biggest fan of extremes. But you can have a larger dry back and re-wet a little bit easier. And then there's always, the mid-range Hugo block that kind of does a little bit of everything.
So how should growers decide between using blocks or slabs? Is it just dependent on the setup, the proximity to the lights? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the setup. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that based on how you guys kind of landed where you did with, the tiered facility and
So we first started in Hugo's, and the first 2 rooms we put online were single tier rooms, so it works out well in a single tier application. I like it because initial transplant, and then that's it. You're not transplanting into another medium, so there's no transplant shock going into the room. So it was something that was an easy transition for me, in my opinion, at our facility. The labor was less because it's less moving parts. At the end of the day, you're just moving a block from point A to point B and flipping the light schedule. But we ended up experimenting a little bit, and we moved to, what we realized is with the veg time that we were doing, we were accumulating so much root mass in that 6x6 that by the time we were in week 3, week 4, we were having to give them night shots just because the substrate wouldn't hold the moisture that I needed overnight, and the lights would turn on, the plants were super dry, and I wasn't too familiar with certain crop steering practices to try to mitigate that issue. And we went to a 4x4x2 for the veg, and then vegged that out for 2 weeks, and then got into the flower room with the jumbos. So the reason I chose the jumbos was because in a multi-tiered setup, you only have so much room until you hit the light, and those 2 inches can mean everything at the end of a cycle or with a specific cultivar. You know, if the plants are growing up past the light, or you know, at that point you're screwed. You're gonna have to go in there and hedge your whole room out. And I know with these double tier systems, a lot of people have that issue. So going with that came with trials and tribulations and issues. We ran into the initial transplant shock where we didn't know at the time that jumbo was wicking out so much of the moisture from that 4x4x2, and it was already an established root zone. So it would go very dry without consistent irrigation. And Kevin was actually somebody that brought that up to me initially in the beginning. And Mo down at the Cure Company down in LA was like, you got to give these things shots like every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, all night for the first couple of nights, and just maintain that moisture. And to the point where it was like during transplant, you have to do that. Like as soon as you set them on those blocks, you better start hitting them. Because if transplant takes 2 hours and you didn't irrigate those first couple of rows, they're dried out. You're killing a lot of that root zone initially. I mean, we were spinning our wheels trying to figure out what the initial issue was. Was it humidity? What was it? And what we ended up doing was just weighing the actual 4x4x2 and placing it on the jumbo, taking it off 15 minutes later, and seeing that dryback based off weight.
Right.
And so we were like, holy crap, like this is pulling a lot of moisture out. So we ended up learning that system, and it worked really well for us. But in the end, we went back to a traditional single block setup just based off labor and transplant shock, and especially for the double tiers, it's extremely efficient. I like the 2 week veg in the jumbo and flip. You know, you're getting great yield, the plant size is great, and overall just easier on the labor for cleanup and set and things like that. But I do think, in my personal opinion, that the plants veg out better in the smaller medium. If you can dial in that initial transplant and get rid of that shock, you will have a better overall yield, in my opinion. But I think you have to have a really dialed in crew for that, and something that you definitely baby step up to. I would recommend slowly going up to something like that unless you have experience with it.
Sure.
So what configuration options does Grodan offer for customizing block and slab configurations to suit specific irrigation strategies? Can you go into like your experience with the slabs specifically? Like it's obviously big or medium in general. As it dries back, you give it bigger shots. I don't have much experience with slabs.
Yeah, so you know, it kind of depends on the steering range. We generally see a larger range in the slabs, so there's certain techniques we can use in terms of shot size to really kind of control where we end up in terms of water content as that plant matures. But generally applying larger shots are going to make us get to drain sooner, so we're going to open up those fibers in the media. So I generally recommend, you know, working your way up in shot size if you are going to increase it on a slab, and that helps with maintaining the root development in the slab as the plant grows without us opening up those fibers too much. Because if we send too large of a shot too quickly, we open up those fibers, and Grodan's fibers are vertical fibers, so as soon as we open those up, they get open too much, then we create what's called false drain, and we start irrigating, and then water is just falling through the media. So we want to make sure that we do that gradually as the roots colonize the media, and then we can start to play with the water content range. And like we mentioned previously, the slabs just re-wet better because they don't have as much vertical height to travel when we're re-wetting. So the capillary action is easier, and it's not fighting gravity quite as much.
and that's something you helped me out with as well when I told you, like, for some reason I'm just drying back too quick, and you're like, well, how big are your initial P1s when you first go in? And they were big enough to the point where they were actually opening up that wool a little bit too much, draining too quick, so we spaced them out a little more to avoid that somewhat channeling, I guess you could say, and it definitely helped out a lot with that. So definitely don't go with those bigger shots just because it wets it up faster and you want to get to that P2 as fast as possible. There's definitely some tuning that you have to do with that.
Absolutely.
So I assume that's the same thing when it comes to like vegetative and generative growth, right? It's
Correct.
all specific to the substrates that you're using.
Correct. Yep.
So how do root zone dynamics differ when using Grodan blocks versus slabs, and like what implications does this have for crop steering? So the bigger the shot, obviously for the bigger medium, is it based off like percentages? Are you looking at like a total value of moisture that that block can hold? Oh, sorry, I think my mic went out, guys.
Share this one. Yeah, so we are looking at obviously the size of sorry, what was the question again?
That's all good. I think it just the question is more based off of like I think the question is more based off like if I have a bigger medium, right? If I'm in jumbos, right, my shot size is going to be based off a percentage, right? And then if I'm in a Hugo, you know, it's going to be a larger size shot, and not necessarily in a bad way, but it's just because the medium is that much more.
Right.
So I would say it's like maybe go into like how big of a shot you actually want to do. How do you calculate those percentages to get there?
Yeah, so all of that is based off the substrate volume. So for example, a Hugo holds 3.195 liters, so roughly 3,200 mils. So if we're looking for a 1 to 3% shot size, we would be taking that entire substrate volume and multiplying it by that 1 to 3% to get our shot size. And you know, just to talk about shot size, as we mentioned earlier, generally smaller shots are going to raise your water content and prevent drain until you get to a point where it's at field capacity, but the larger shots are going to get you to drain sooner, and it's going to make you plateau sooner. So, you know, when you're looking at certain things, especially when we're trying to manage the substrate, you know, I like to weekly make sure that I'm hitting my drain and my runoff, and I'm adjusting my targets throughout the cycle. So every week I may have a different field capacity that I'm targeting because I know that that root zone is starting to fill out the slab. So as that happens, there's going to be less water holding capacity, and I'm going to see a decrease in what the substrate can hold. So I think that's, you know, kind of a point that people ask, oh, I put my sensor in and it's at 80%. Why can I not maintain 80% throughout the entire time? And that's because you have to consider the root mass that's filling out that slab.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing to see that come down a little bit gradually as you move forward.
Absolutely.
So what are the advantages to Grodan's vertical fiber orientation versus like some of the competitors that are horizontal?
So the vertical fibers, you know, allows us to refresh just a little bit quicker, and you know, the horizontal fibers are going to hold water slightly differently, so you're going to see a different drain rate. So that's where, you know, you might see a difference between different competitors and how they, you know, form their wool, but essentially it's related to the drain and how that water is held in the media. So you might see some that have horizontal fiber orientation and then others that have vertical. We have seen some stratification in the media in terms of EC and salts. So we're looking at refreshment. We want to be able to refresh the media and displace the old pore water as quickly as possible. And I believe that's why Grodan gravitated more towards vertical fiber orientation.
Yeah, cool. I definitely wouldn't have ever thought about that kind of thing just from a cultivation standpoint, but it makes sense. So I guess a pretty general question that a lot of people have is stone wool reusable or recyclable?
So it is recyclable. It's a lot more common in Europe. You know, there's a lot more programs that are involved with our vegetable production out there. I believe last year it was between 60 to 70% of it was recycled actually, but the demand here in the U.S. is not quite as big yet. You know, cannabis is still a smaller subsection of this bigger. I don't want to say cannabis is necessarily big ag yet, but it's a smaller section of what's eventually going to become more big ag and be more related to these other crops. So There's other things you can do with it. There's ways to use it to till it in a field. It helps with aeration and water holding capacity in soils that are maybe depleted. So there are some options, but really you got to get talking to your local municipalities about the recycling because it's just the infrastructure is not quite there yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so that's pretty much a fair amount of questions for you on that one, I get. So something that we've been doing at the Miami Mango facility, obviously, is with the Thinkro lights, we have the ability to spectrum tune and deliver different spectrum colors throughout the cycle. So, yeah, we have a couple of questions that you could ask me about spectrum tuning the lights specifically to irrigation strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. So can light spectrum tuning be used in combination with substrate and irrigation strategies to enhance steering outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely is the answer to that. So, obviously when you start out, you have your generative, you're trying to create stress on the plant. Well, we're actually trying to create some form of light stress, I guess you could call it, in a way, where you're giving the plant as much blue spectrum as you possibly can. And with that comes the white diodes on the Thinkro lights. You're going to have a more dominant white spectrum, and that's going to keep the plant from stretching internodally and getting too tall too fast. It gets all the side branching to get, even is the goal, to get even with that top. I'm a fan of not topping the plants. I think it changes a lot of the way the plants irrigate or drink, I should say. And I like keeping everything extremely uniform. I think topping can get things a little wonky here and there, and the plants won't eat the same. But having that white light specifically during the generative cycle is going to really create those flower sites that you want, that first set of flower sites. Extremely important. And I like to have, so if I'm at an 80% white spectrum, which the plant is viewing as yellow and blue to a certain extent, I'm like at half that strength for the deep red spectrum. I want to introduce red, but I don't want to have it dominate over the plant. I think that's also why the inner canopy lights that we have, being individually spectrum tuned as well, create a more dense flower with the lower section compared to other under canopy lights or inner canopy lights in the market. I think, and I'll transition into, when you get into the bulk steering, your swell stage, the more dominant red is what's going to give that flower its structure to actually swell and create some color within that flower. It's great for that. It's perfect for that. But without the red light, you're going to have some green bud. So you got to have that red light. And I think some of the other competitors under canopy lights, which are great lights, don't get me wrong, have more dominant red spectrum from the jump. So you're going to get big flower down there. It's going to be able to blend in those packs, but it's definitely not going to weigh, and it's not going to have that density, that flower structure that the top ones have. It just doesn't. I mean, I've been in the industry long enough. I've seen enough product where I can pick those flowers out of the pound. With the ICLs and more dominant white spectrums in the beginning, you get that density transition as you're transitioning into your swell phase into that less stressful red, and let that plant just develop and actually flower out the way it's supposed to. And I think as you get towards the end, your ripening phase, you're starting to reintroduce water stress to a certain extent and stress the plant out a little bit more. You keep that red dominant, but with the Thinkro light specifically, you increase that UV. And what that UV is, in my opinion, is the plant's trichomes are its last line of defense. You're killing that plant slowly. So the plant's going to develop trichomes. It's like, oh my God, save me from all this light, as I'm dying. You crank up that UV, it puts those trichomes into overdrive. I mean, we took photos of the flower close up daily as I increased UV, and trust me, I was nervous. You don't want to introduce UV to a flower and go too high too quick and burn your whole crop. Especially if you're the one steering those lights. And bills come fast, So I think actually introducing that UV towards the end in combination, where you get that more of a purple that you see over here with the ICLs, is what really changes the oil and resin production and the entire look of that flower towards the end. Like it's just a game changer when it comes to that. So you have different light spectrums that benefit the plant during different irrigation phases, and I think it's important to match that. So it's something we've definitely learned over the last couple of years at the facility.
Yeah, so I think you've touched on how the light spectrum can influence generative versus vegetative growth and what we're kind of trying to achieve there. I know you touched on UV. Have you guys done anything with like UVB and what that does for like integrated pest management or anything?
So we don't have the capability to test that yet. I know there's other competitors' lights that have that. What they're saying is it doesn't necessarily kill all the pests, but it keeps them from reproducing. I don't know as far as safety regulations go about having them in the room. You may have to lock your room if it can damage an employee's eyes or something like that. But I do think there's a future in different forms of UV for all that kind of stuff, and I'd love to get a chance to play with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see the research if you guys get to it.
Definitely.
So when we're talking about spectrum tuning and manipulating plant morphology, is there anything that you could do in particular to, say, increase internode length, leaf size, or something to support those crop steering goals?
Yeah, definitely. It's the far red. I mean, introducing that far red spectrum is going to increase the leaf size overnight. It's kind of wild the way that the plant actually reacts to being introduced to a far red spectrum individually. We noticed it immediately. The one thing was the transplant shock almost disappears. The plants go lime green. So if you have like some red stems and you turn on that far red for 5 minutes individually after the other light spectrums are out, so essentially darkness, have the far reds come on for 5 more minutes, the next day your plants are lime green and praying. So there was like an instant like grower satisfaction when it came to that, right? It was like, oh my God, like this is really helping. So from an aesthetic point of view, it definitely benefits. And so Alex and I were sitting in the bedroom one day and we're like, let's try it on. We have the Model V lights. It has a far red channel. Let's try it on our teens. And we did it. And the next day they were like bean poles, just like straight, no side branching or anything. They were super tall and praying. We're like, well, that backfired on us. But we learned a valuable lesson because it can increase your internodal spacing very fast. So that's where, going back to having the white spectrum, it's so important in the beginning to give it that dominant white spectrum to keep that internodal stretch, but then also introducing that far red. It's almost fighting each other. And what you'll see is the stalk size will just expand. It'll get fatter, kind of like me over the last 2 years. But it'll get fatter, and it definitely just changes everything about the plant. It's pretty wild. And not only does it change the way it looks, but it changes the way it reacts. It changes the way that it eats. It changes the way the flower looks. It finishes the flower faster. Everything happens faster when you introduce far red individually. We've done tests of 5 minutes after dark, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour. We did blackout curtains and did individual tests on the same room, same strains. We found that a little bit goes a long way. We ran them at 100%. So an individual far red spectrum doesn't give off a lot of PPFD. It's not much at all. It's like maybe 100 to 150 at 100%. And a friend of mine, Sean from Demeter Designs, he was like, hey, why don't you try running it for 12 hours and 5 minutes after dark at a really, really low intensity. And I found that I was able to control the plant stretching and internodal spacing a lot better that way by giving very, very small amounts for longer periods of time with the other light spectrums to kind of homogenize, to kind of blend it in there with the other ones. So the plant's seeing far red all the time because, traditional lighting has far red in it. And the sun has far red in it. I believe what I've researched is it's a shade avoidance type situation where a plant thinks it's in the shade. So it's kind of like pushing everything it's got to try to get bigger. So you can try to manipulate that by keeping the plant short with the generative steering and the blue light, but also with hitting it with the far red. You're kind of getting the best of both worlds with that.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that. So when you're looking at this, are there any best practices that you would recommend for integrating the spectrum control with other environmental parameters?
That's something that I'm doing now. I'm trying to see if there's a big change in VPD because I've kind of kept it traditional with the VPD, a lower VPD, like a 9.9, 0.95 to a 1 in the beginning, 82 degrees, 72, 74% humidity, kind of what we're all accustomed to right now. For initial steering, try to keep it a little warmer, a little more humid. Plants seem to like it a lot better. I haven't had the chance to really try that one yet. So we're in the process of doing it right now, so I can't really speak on behalf of that environmentally. But I do know traditional VPD rates that we're all used to in crop steering with the spectrum tuning and the far red specifically do extremely well. And I think it's best to not change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it in that regard. But if something comes up, and you know, I'm sure I'm going to be trying it soon.
So that being said, on the flip side of that, are there measurable differences in like nutrient uptake or transpiration rates when light spectrum is adjusted during different growth stages?
Yeah, I would say it's not too bad. It's relatively similar. I think once you introduce the far red, though, the plant definitely wants to eat more. You definitely need to increase the EC. We've noticed that as well. One thing in particular that it does, based off of our leaf tissue analysis tests, is that the plant really drives calcium and magnesium. So unfortunately, as growers, you know, you don't want to have that whole mindset of add more CalMag and it fixes it, but you do need some additional CalMag, and specifically those two nutrients, when you are introducing the far red spectrum. So there's definitely some nutrient availability that you have to increase when it comes to spectrum tuning.
Very cool. And then I had a question too, just what are you guys doing in terms of, you know, utilizing your under canopies? You know, are you spectrum tuning that the same as your
Yes,
top lights as
absolutely.
well?
So I'm mimicking what I'm doing on the top lights at a lower intensity. You know, when we introduce the inner canopy lights, we introduce them on day one at a low intensity, and I slowly increase the intensity of that spectrum. But I keep the same color spectrum. I'm trying to give the plant overall similar color spectrum, so it's receiving everything, and just daily increases up to the point where I'm at about 100% of the wattage by day 10, and the plant's leaf surface temperature will change if you're too high too fast. So it's definitely something that's important when you're crop steering as well. Keep in mind the leaf surface temperature when it comes to adding under canopy lights or any type of light. It's very important and a very overlooked thing in cannabis. The leaf surface temperature is extremely important.
Do you see an increase in the structure of the plant, or any, you know, since you said you are turning the inner canopy lights on from day one, what are you seeing in terms of?
So the lower half of the plant develops just as much side branching, if not more, than the top of the plant. And with the ICL specifically, and you introduce the far red on the ICLs, that shade avoidance that I was talking about with the far red, the bottom lower branching is going to shoot up. It's almost going to stand like at attention, you know, and you're going to get the flower just kind of stretching towards that inner canopy light. And it's going to develop a stalk that's strong enough to hold it up. You know, it is important to make sure that that lower trellis is down there, but when you have the far red, it's like a tree. If you've ever seen a tree growing underneath a bigger tree, some of the side branching will have shoots that are just straight up underneath it if you look really closely. And that's the plant realizing that it's in the shade and trying to get direct sunlight from it. The lower canopy will do that as well. So all that lower side branching that's down there will shoot up and become middle branching, I guess what you want to say. And there's a light right there. And because of the 300-degree spread on the ICLs, you're getting direct light from all the spectrums on those flowers. So that's why we have such dense lowers. I mean, our smalls are the same size as other people's bees here in town. You know, I sell my smalls at, you know, $800 a pound because they're basically bees, but we just call them smalls because, in my opinion, calling something a bee means it's lower quality. But these are not lower quality, they're just a little bit smaller. So I just call them smalls. It's just a way for me to stand out as well. It's just something out here in this market is tough, so you gotta try to stand out somehow.
Yeah, and then in terms of quality, just to bring it all full circle, what are you seeing with the spectrum tuning in terms of, say, flavor, smokability? Are you seeing any different results in the end product that are notable compared to how you were running it before?
I think the most obvious is the fact that the yield now has, or the yield is very similar. Now, there is some data out there that says that the yield is slightly lower, and it was for us in the beginning too, but as we changed our, you know, logic when it came to using these lights, the yields are just the same, if not better. The harvest time is significantly decreased, right? So the fact that we were able to shade specifically on candies, which is, you know, the dominant flower in this industry, down from a traditional, some are 58 days, some are 63 days. We harvest our entire facility at 52 days. and everything is cooked. Everything looks great. There's flour over here if you guys want to check it out. It's all harvested at 52 days. It smells amazing. It check marks all the boxes. I think smokability is more a crop steering, part of it. I don't know, or I can't say if spectrum tuning is going to increase smokability, but it does increase the trichome production, which then therefore, alters it.
Totally.
But I think a lot of that has to do with your irrigation and your environment, more so than the lights. But as far as look goes, I mean, for me, it's hard for me to find better looking candies on the market than the ones that are spectrum tuned. We have a room with an older light, the Model W from ThinkGrow, that does not have the ability to spectrum tune the lights. It does have a far red independent channel, but I can't change these spectrums. I have it on the same exact schedule, same exact plants, same exact irrigation strategy, same exact environmental controls in a separate room, smaller R&D room, and the flower quality difference is night and day. It's night and day. I invite everybody, please come to the facility and see it for yourselves, because you will never have a thought in the negative about spectrum tuning again. You will see it 100% works. The flower sells for more, and that's the name of the game. Make more money. Spectrum tune, make more money. Simple.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. So to wrap it all up, what is your favorite strain that you guys are cultivating right now? What would you recommend people try to?
I mean, right now it's funny because I've actually had a lot more customers come into the facility. They're saying that the candies are a little played out. They're a little over the candies. So I still have majority of the bulk buyers coming in to grab candies. But at Cookies Hayward recently, which is a good friend of mine, owns that store and operates it, he sold out through, we grew a batch of Gorilla Glue 4. And we just got a cut of it. And it came back and it sold out so quick. I had people coming over asking for Gorilla Glue. So it just so happened that the first round that we did it, it hit 4 pounds of light. So I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Now keep in mind, I'm not going to grow a lot of it. I don't want to get stuck with a box of Gorilla Glue and only have one guy that buys 20. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to grow a lot of candy. So financially, I'm still a candy lover at the end of the day. I like my Royal Cherry, my Wild Cherry. The Zootopia is a great strain, the classic Obama Runts. That's what's going to pay the bills. Personally, I love growing the Gorilla Glue 4, the Gelato 41. I really love Gas Pedal, which is an horchata spritzer. Just non-candies in general. I mean, for so long as cultivators, specifically here in Sacramento, we have to grow candies. You want to pay your bills, you have to grow candies. But all of us before this, when we were growing for, let's keep it real, a lot more money, and it was a lot more fun, we were growing different shit. Gorilla Glues, sours, OGs. I'm from Southern California. OGs are everything. And I hope we can all get back to that point. And I think cultivation will get a lot more fun when there's a lot more variety out there. So
Absolutely.
I think the old school strains are really my favorite, but candies pay the bills.
Yeah, it seems like they're starting to make a comeback.
Yeah, let's hope it does.
But to wrap up everything full circle, I mean, it kind of goes to show through Josh's experience with Alex and the team that you guys have really done a good job of curating what works well for your facility, what works well for your setup, what makes sense for you. You're checking all the boxes, in your end product, whether that's bag appeal, whether that's, flavor, smokability, whatever metrics you're tracking. But it just goes to show that, you've made all the decisions that really get you to this end point and what fits for, the methodology that works for your team.
Yeah, and please, there's a couple of jars over there. Check out the flower. See 52-day harvested candies that are spectrum tuned. It's great. I just wanted to say thank you. And oh yeah, you gotta use the Hydro X Pro and ThinkGrow lights to achieve it. So go ahead and buy those whenever you get a chance. All right. I also wanted to say thank you to you, John. There's been a lot of times where I called you stressing out, trying to figure something out, and you've helped me through that. I know a lot of people rely on Grodan's guys and experts, and you guys are a great company. And Akram is a great dude. He hooks it up all the time. And in this industry, you try to find good people to work with. So, if anybody's ever interested in going into Rockwool, I've tried them all. And there's other great Rockwool out there, but I think the customer service part of Grodan is something that can't be touched. So I appreciate you guys coming out here and sitting up here with me, helping me figure out this kind of setting. And It's really cool to
Yeah.
hang out with you guys.
Appreciate the kind words, and yeah, enough can't be said about your team as well. You know, you guys always do a great job. You always, welcome us with open arms and provide us with everything we need. So we, couldn't be more thankful to work with you guys.
Sweet. All right. Does anybody have any questions about anything Grodan related, Rockwool related?
I got a ton of questions. Question we talked about the older models versus the newer models. Tooling being the differentiator quality.
Okay.
Is it that five? All right. I don't like the difference.
It's all good.
But so with the differentiation between the quality, the older model, the newer model, and the tooling being that differentiation, is it the blue in the beginning before stretch, or is it that far red at the end of the cycle? Less?
Well, you look at it from the older model perspective, right? It's a single spectrum. So the only thing you can do with that spectrum is either raise the intensity or lower the intensity. It's the same color. The plant is viewing the same color the entire time, just either at higher PPFD or lower PPFD. So with the newer models, I can manipulate that to bring different colors more dominantly.
I'm generalizing like this. So you're saying far red is in that original spectrum?
On certain models. So like,
Okay.
it depends which model you're talking about.
In that room where you're seeing
Yeah, so there's a model W, right? The model,
does that have the far red?
correct, it does have the far red, but it only has the individual full spectrum channel for line 1. So the far red is an independent channel. So I can't change my deep red, I can't change my UV, I can't change my whites. It's set. The only thing I can change for those is the intensity of that setting. The far red I can run individually. So we do harvest that room at the same time. You do get the added benefits of the far red from that older model W light. But let's just say if you had a model H plus light, I can change every, I can pump up the blues in the beginning and I can lower those reds. And I can make that plant more dominant of a blue spectrum. I'll get more flower sites. I'll keep the plant more compact. The side branching will reach the top node and then switch it over to the far red once those pistils start forming. Because then those pistils, that's what tells you to start cranking up that far red. Because once those pistils start growing, or deep red, excuse me, once those pistils start growing, it's a lot faster when you hit it with the far red. You're getting flower sites like day 9, day 10. So by day 18, those pistils aren't going to get any bigger. Right now, then the flower's going to start forming. So that's when you start cranking up that red, and it starts to actually develop into that flower, and you get that structure of the flower that you really want. I think with a lot of traditional LEDs that have a fixed spectrum that you can't change, you're kind of stuck with that. So the flower develops alongside that. Whereas you can change it, you can manipulate it. As it's finishing faster, you want it to have a more dominant red faster. So that's why, it is important with newer technology to kind of adapt to it. And we show that with the Model W versus the Model H plus. Same strength, same environments, same everything, same irrigation strategy, same growers, same nutrients, whatever you want to do. And it's literally night and day. Like, please come to the facility so I can show you. It's something to trip out and see, for sure.
Presentation, it sounds like that bud set is what's
It sets it apart, yeah. It sets it apart. And the fact that you can do the same thing with the inner canopy lights with that lower growth is extremely important. Because that lower flower, like even with some under canopies, like it'll develop, it'll get big, but it won't get dense, or the color is not uniform. It's something that you can blend in a pack, but can you get only your lowers in the A pack? Like we'll chop plants in half and have the separated lowers just in a pack by itself, and you won't be able to tell the difference. Like it's night and day.
So when we started growing the facility, nobody really had any experience with spectrum. So we rated the lights. We wanted to learn, to see how the strings that we had, how they would grow under, spectrum. I think after a year and a few months into learning the facility, learning the lights, learning the different plants that we had, then we said, hey, we're going to bring the far end. So they one spectrum at a time, and then we actually grew, like you
questions thing, like with me asking you.
That worked. I was like, that's how we're doing it. Okay.
It's a
It actually worked fine.
It's a freestyle.
That's why I had to throw some of those extra questions on. I was like, I'm actually curious about this now.
He's 100% right that, your life according to the irrigation strategies, and actually, more rights indicated that blue, transitioning with the reds, and then you do micro shots of the far reds, and you develop some of it. Now you walk into, like I said, that
Definitely got to touch up on the lighting stuff. Been reading a lot of research since all this. I was like, hang on a minute.
Oh yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
The new lights too, like now they're really developing into the spectrum too. The synchros like all.
Fuck yeah. That's so cool.
Same solutions, same growth, same issue, same everything. It's night and day. Like, we'll sell the same F4 pack, maybe like 800, 850. The ones that come out at 6, 1,000, the packs. Same exact, same everything. And you get $200 more per pack. Easy. It's like we want more than that. 100%.
Yeah, unfortunately, $1,000 a pack right now is for a fucking commercial pack. It's the high.
Yeah, that's my high.
That's the high right now. Yeah, right. It's like, fuck, stack packs are like, fuck, thank God. I'm getting stacked for these. Like, it makes a huge difference. Like, that room is literally making so much more money just because it has the ability to spec things.
From your presentation, I'm thinking that blue and how you're saying that morphology, how they're drinking in from that last two.
Yep.
I'm just thinking if we could just quick enough for Skittles with those last.
Dude, we just pulled Z down at day 41. We pulled Z down. I had to.
And that's normally 52.
Yeah, it was cooked.
Those work, yeah.
It's cooked. If I take it any further, it's going to go bad. You know how Z is. If you take it 2 days too long, it's like, oh man, you really lose a lot of the turf. Yeah. 41 days, I was like, dude, we got to pull this like now. So yeah, we're really testing the limits of it. And, I think the future is going to be wild. Somebody's going to come out with more information about this stuff. And are you going to have the ability to match it? Somebody's going to come out and be like, hey, if you do this type of spectrum tuning here, you can get whatever, X amount more days shaved off. And if you have an older model light, you're stuck. So it's great to have the ability to even try it.
I'm low tech on, I'm starting like TC nursery.
Yeah.
So on a low level, like if I know the genetics a little bit more stretchy or short, I can go red, I'm thinking red or blue.
Right.
Just to.
So the Model 1 system.
Or to keep it compact to keep the shelf life on.
Yeah, so the Model 1 system, they're 90-watt individual bars, so they work great for that because you don't necessarily have to have a big flowering light with a driver and 720 watts. You can spectrum tune with 90 watts if you wanted to, and Alex is over there, of course, he's going to show you the setup that he's got. So
Don't look directly into it.
looking like Vanna White over there.
So my wife was going to a showroom. She's like, I thought you were going to a grow. I'm like, nah, it's a showroom. You gotta see it.
It's a grow room. In a showroom.
Model 1. The reason why there's no Model 1 is because you can easily see that it's got 5 red clusters. And 5 red clusters. And I'm saying there's not nothing you can do. It's a little bit heavier bar. And when they redid the Model 1, that is up here, that bar weighs about half the weight. It's close to half the weight. But the other difference only has 4 clusters of reds. Alright. So when we put this in the new, or now older model rooms, we started seeing them when we started fully spectrum to it, that the inside of the canopy, because these lights actually are slanted on the canopy. The center of the
Gotta get him a
canopy
new t-shirt.
is color really, really quick. Because all the cross from the deeper. The outskirts of the canopy would stay green.
I did ask that for a sweatshirt. He said he'd hook me up.
Yeah,
Those sweatshirts
he's got bags for you guys and stuff with sweaters in it.
Sweatshirts are sick.
Thick as hell too.
Are they? That'll be perfect for winter in Colorado.
So that's what I get on the phone with.
But I'm like, this is actual brand I would wear. Like, I don't really wear many people's shit.
Give information back to Control Master Phone,
He did a really good job.
He does good stuff.
Dude, yeah.
Like even these, like, he was like, that's gonna be
Sick
sick.
and Nike shirts.
So what we learned from that is that instead of putting clusters, then we put the linear. So now the red starts here all the way to
Those greenhouse lights.
Yeah, but we have them for the single tier as well, for indoor. Actually, they fucking crush them.
Do they?
Yeah, those guys in the back, the guy in the blue shirt.
The honey.
Yeah,
Honey,
pot.
yeah.
Yeah, they got fucking model
I have like the red or yellow clusters that run down, like the panels run down, and then tiny spots in between. So like I see what you're talking about. The outside, like
Another thing that was a byproduct that I did not expect is when I was in Europe, the new light bars do also have easy glass. We've always been anti-glass because we feel that it restricts some of the EPFD. But due to our main reasons, we had to put easy glass. Josh told me when I was in Europe, he goes, "We believe like the sections, the roads or the roads that we have the glass on, testing, is more even color."
Because it diffuses light better. It's the same thing with the greenhouse. Like holiday days better than sunny days.
He came back and was like, "Oh my god." He's like, "We need all new light bars." Fuck.
That's a byproduct of using glass, versus the silicon coating. It somehow diffuse the light more evenly, and it more color.
I thought about risk of bleaching like too much red, like getting past that 20%.
And it bleaches the nuts.
What's that?
Bleaching.
I think bleaching can come from too much light in general. I've found that it's very genetic, it's genetic based, and proximity to light, how close it is. Red has never given us bleach tips at our facility.
I've never had experience, but I've seen like posters of it back with local lights.
Yeah.
And then someone was saying a paper about too much red past that. You're saying that 80%, like past
Yeah,
that 20.
I think it's once you start bringing the EC down in the plant overall, like that's why it happens to people at the end. They're trying to get their
They're
EC
turning on
down,
too early.
and the lights are a little bit too intense, or a specific color is too intense.
Like,
That's when it will happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on the Gorilla Glue 4, the ones that are like really, really close to the diodes, because we were pushing it, we wanted to see how bad we could get that plant. Yeah, we wanted to push it as hard as we could, and we pushed it, foxtailed like crazy. The tops got a little bleached, but yeah, it wasn't everything, it was just a couple. So to say like a specific color did it, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I think in general, you lower the EC, you have too much light, it's gonna happen.
Any other questions, anybody? Before I forget, anybody that's here, my son has a bunch of Grodan coupons. $100 coupon, if you go over to Peters on Agro, and you spend $500 on Grodan Rockwool, you get $100 coupon, you get $100 off. So just make sure that, whether you use Grodan, go grab them, go try Grodan, and, get introduced to very sterile, great.
He's
After
happy.
that, if you are in Cocoa and you ever wanted to try Rockwool, we'd be happy to set you guys up free trials, free rooms.
Always close.
Maybe
Always
even,
so.
a sensor or two, so that you can go into trying Rockwool and minimizing the risk and stuff. That's available as well.
Give it a shot. Try the Rockwool. Give it one shot. Try it out. Guys in the back. All right. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you.
Sweet, dude. All right. Good work.
Yeah.
That was good.
Hopefully I get invited to Sail GP again next year.
Oh, most definitely.
Don't forget about me for Sail GP. I love that shit, dude.